The general purpose of this meeting is to talk about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the community, and we can, since there's really everybody's interested in Pickens County, we're not going to break out into small groups and have just a few people for certain communities. I'm Richard Osborne with Pickens County, and our state planner, Ethan Calhoun, out of Rome. He's coordinating this effort. Appreciate you being here. If you weren't here at the last meeting, just a quick recap. We went over some of the survey results from the hundreds of folks who filled out online and hard copy forms. And if you have not seen that, or if you'd like to get a digital or hard copy of those results, I'll be glad to give them to you. We also talked about water and sewer infrastructure, parks and recreation, downtown planning, and arts and cultural activities. Those were a few of the things that people were particularly interested in. If we can, please, again, Ethan Calhoun, Richard Osborne, let's go around the room, because some people were not here last time, and appreciate it.
John Fowle, City Council, Jasper.
John Weaver, Mayor, Jasper.
I'm Bill Cagle. I'm also the chairman of the Planning Commission.
Stephen Hall. Jim Looney, Jasper Council Member. Greg Rice.
Marie Hyde.
Don Wells. Bill Miller. Jerry Nakatow with the Pickens Chamber.
Miranda Gallo.
Sandra Levins.
Robert Willingham. Dennis Legato.
Adriana Gutierrez.
Tina Monahan, Nelson City Manager.
I'm Sonny Proctor, Jasper City Council. Tina Logan.
Leah Logan.
Yes, sir.
Dan Poole, Pickens Progress.
Max Cagle.
Amy Lee, Downtown Alliance.
Chris Lee.
Randy Banks. Lee Brown. Lee Gray.
There's a sheet of sign-ins that's been floating around. If you didn't sign in, if you will, please, before you leave, make sure you do that. And I'm going to turn it over to Ethan in just a minute. Again, want to make sure that you're aware in general of the fact that we've still got a while to get all input into us. The draft of this comprehensive planning effort has not yet been prepared. It's not due until next year. So, I'll be glad to talk to you face-to-face whenever, and Ethan will as well. So if you don't have our contact information, let me know. We'll be glad to give you a holler. Thank you, Ethan. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you all for being here. Awesome attendance tonight. Something as we go through the process, it's nice to get a lot of eyes on this project as we move forward, just so give everybody a chance to have their input. And the more people like yourselves that come and get involved in this process, the stronger it's going to make this plan hold up. Because when the county and the cities and all entities are interested in bettering the community as a whole, do things like complete projects, they're going to apply for grants, state and federal, of all sizes. And anytime you do that, especially if it's state or federal, one of the first things they're going to look at is, do you have a comprehensive plan, first of all? And not everybody does. And second of all, they're going to look at how competitive yours is, how well it was written, and how accurate it is. Is it just cookie cutters? It sort of looks like somebody threw some things together. Does it look like people really had input? And was it just the local officials' input, or did the citizens actually come in and have their say as well? So this is the sort of thing that's going to make it a stronger plan and help everybody in the long run. Now, the reason we're here and all that, as I just mentioned, it's the state and federal government want communities to plan together, specifically the state through a department called the Department of Community Affairs. And all that federal and state money kind of filters down through them. So this is one of the ways, again, that they sort of decide when people submit grant applications how to divvy that money up. So they can't say, the state can't really say at this point a community has to plan, but they sort of use the carrot and stick approach that if you want to even be eligible for those grants or state and federal permits, so if you got a water utility and things like that, you need to be what's called a qualified local government, and that's what they call QLG. And to be part of that, you have to do a few things. One of the major ones is the comprehensive plan. And they come around now every 5 years you have to do an update, every 10 years you do a full update. And this is a 10-year full update, so we're going to basically open this thing up and run with it. So this is what's part of the full plan. I'll just pull it up here for some of you folks may be new to the process, and just to recoup real fast, there's required elements of this plan that we have to do, and there's things that we can electively choose to do. This is they simplified the process back in 2014. Used to, there was so much bureaucracy involved in making a comprehensive plan. It was a whole lot more trouble than it was worth for a lot of communities that didn't have just massive planning departments like in Atlanta and places like that that can go out and do all sorts of things. So it was more of a burden than a help for a while for a lot of places. So they simplified it down a whole lot in 2014, and this is what we have now. It's more of an a la carte type deal. You can only have to do what you're required to do, and then you can choose to do more than that. So up here on the left side, you see required elements. We have to set goals in this plan, goals you want to reach in the next 5 to 10 years. Set those goals and figure out what are the needs and what are the opportunities of each community as far as regarding those goals. And sort of the meat and potatoes of this plan is what's called the community work program. And what the community work program is just essentially a to-do list for 5 years. And how the community work program works is that basically we make a spreadsheet table, and we sort of have a line that says we have a project to, let's say, repair an old historic bridge or something like that. It's going to cost $100,000, and we're going to need an engineering survey, so on and so forth. So if you wanted to do that, you put that project in that work program to say we're going to complete that in the year 2021. That's our completion date. We'd like to see for that. It's going to cost us, let's just say, for instance, $100,000, and it's going to be, let's say the county is going to do it. So they're the responsible ones. And then you may already have an idea, well, we want to apply for this particular grant. So you can say, well, that's a viable funding source for that project. So it's just a to-do list for projects, and it goes on and on and on and on. And how we're going to come up with that list of projects is, first again, go back to what are the needs and opportunities. We're going to sort of look at that specifically here tonight and conduct what we call a SWOT analysis. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And from that, we'll be able to write up needs and opportunities. And once I write those up and we get those reduced down into print, we'll bring that back, probably reconvene the next meeting, and talk about needs and opportunities and what we pull from this meeting here tonight. And also, again, from the surveys. Bravo on the surveys, by the way, over 700, which so far has been our record at the Regional Commission with our 15 counties in the last couple of years of doing comprehensive plan surveys. The highest otherwise was, I think, like 300, so you guys more than doubled them. So again, kudos on that. Let's see. All right, so let's get started with the main portion of the meeting. I've just got a little slideshow with some pictures I took a couple weeks ago, and don't get offended if I left a particular part of the community out. I'm just getting started. We're still early in the process. I've still got to make my rounds and take some more pictures. Something else I'd like you guys to do, you've got my business cards up here. Everybody please take one if you don't have my contact information already. And what I'd like for some of y'all to do, if you would, to help me out, you guys know your community better certainly than I would, or anybody else, depending on where you're at. And if you would, just email me, or you can go through Richard and say, hey, there's a real scenic area or something like that, or hey, you need to include this portion or this area in the plan somehow. We just like to put pictures in the plan. I think it's something to kind of break up the monotony of all the tables and charts and graphs and all that stuff. And I think when somebody from Atlanta or somebody from the state in general opens up your comprehensive plan, and they will, it's nice to see pictures of the community in there, so if they get a better idea of your community, they get to know you better. And it just sort of brings reality into this plan. And sometimes it's a good representation if we have projects in there. If I can show a picture in the comprehensive plan, you go to apply for grants and things like that, they can see the condition of things, and they can see a visual need for those sorts of projects and all that stuff. So, without further ado, what we're going to do tonight is sort of just a general input. There's no rhyme or reason in this. I guess, I don't know if we need to do by hand raising or something like that, or just blurt out, but I guess one after the other, because I'm going to have to write this down. What we're going to do is just very simple, low tech, nothing fancy. Right now on these boards up here, based on each topic. So first thing I need to do is make sure I got my agenda, make sure I'm following this thing right. So we're going to do this by topic. That way we can have some order to our rhythm tonight, method to the madness, if you will. So first subject up in our SWOT analysis is economic development. Mind my handwriting, you probably won't be able to read it from back there. But so first off, economic development. So we're looking at jobs, education can be a part of this, skilled workforce, so on and so forth. It can be things to that nature. Let's talk about weaknesses.
Tell you what, it'd probably be better for you to talk and I'll write. How about
Bingo.
that?
That sounds great. Moderate. Okay, so let's talk about economic development. Let's talk about weaknesses. What weaknesses do you guys think that y'all have regarding economic development? And please, when you answer, state which community that you're representing tonight.
I'm
Yes,
from
ma'am.
Monument Falls. But I think this is a weakness for the entire county when 50% of our workforce works in retail, and it's a declining industry and low pay.
So workforce.
Workforce. Well, the jobs, the people work, only 50% of people work in retail, and 60% of them leave the county to do it.
Limitation on water.
Limitation on water, okay. So natural resources and limitation on water. So what you're talking about is like your groundwater stores. Okay.
Well, we have no major body of water. There's no river that comes through the county. There's no, there's a bunch of private lakes, but there's no
No reservoir.
reservoir. There's no river that comes through the county.
What is the main water supply? I should know this.
Well, Long Swamp Creek, as far as natural, it's Long Swamp Creek and then private wells.
Bringing water in from all the other counties?
Okay, so like Cherokee, you can bringing in water there as far as city water goes.
Calhoun,
What other county?
Cherokee, Bartow.
Okay.
Yeah, Gordon.
Very good. So that's certainly going to affect if you were interested in manufacturing and that sort of thing, or just higher density residential development. That would certainly be a weakness, if not a threat.
The diversity of our businesses.
Diversity business. What community? Countywide?
Countywide.
Okay.
So the workforce itself, so we have a low unemployed rate, but we also have a low population. So the available workers is, because of that, is kind of low.
Okay.
Make sense?
Say that one more time in a different way.
So we have a low population, and we also have a low unemployment rate.
Yes.
So we don't have very many available workers.
Okay. And I've noticed too, a lot of the demographics is you have a lot of folks that are beyond the
Correct.
age of standard employment.
Right.
So, well, you got a lot of retired folks. So that can, yes, ma'am.
I really disagree with, and I know the federal government puts it out all the time, of these very low employment numbers is because they don't count people that have been unemployed for 6 months. People aren't looking. So I think the unemployment rate is much higher than they will ever admit to. And, you know, I think it's in general, and I guess the federal government started with this. And so, you know, when
But ours
anyone says
really-
it's a low unemployment rate, I don't think it is.
But ours relative to other areas, they have those
I
same
think they're all
factors.
high. I mean, just think they're saying they're all high. Because I think people after 6 months, they don't look, and they're not, you know,
But
they're
that's
not
everywhere.
registered with the Labor Department. So,
I agree with what you're saying, but that's across the board.
I agree.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
ours is low relative to other areas as well.
Okay, that's a good point. Yes, sir.
We're not retaining our high school graduates.
Training, that's great. That is a great point to make. We see that a lot in Northwest Georgia.
Especially Pickens.
Right, okay. Well, it's very common, and it's due greatly in part to what Dr. Proctor just mentioned, is a lack of, and some other folks have mentioned, lack of job opportunities. And right, and
Industrial or it's retail.
absolutely. So that is a big part of a lot of the youth leaving, going to college and not coming back home, at least not for a while. Yes, sir.
You got no sewer.
No sewer, okay?
Very limited. Pickens has got it, the county doesn't, has no plans.
Okay, very good.
Desire of the population to live in a low-density area.
Desire of the population to live in a low-density area. Define, what do you mean by that?
Well, we attract a lot of people into Pickens County because it's not Woodstock. It's not.
So people are coming here because they like the scenic views, they like the low density and all that? Is that what you're?
They like an elbow room.
Elbow room. Well, I like that myself. I live in a pretty rural, very rural area myself.
Not necessarily rural, but low
Well,
density.
Right, low density. I agree with that. I would
So is
follow
that a
that
strength or a
category.
weakness?
Yeah.
Well, it's a weakness for economic development and a strength for another kind of development.
Right.
I don't live here because it's convenient. I've been here 25 years. I don't live here because it's convenient.
It's a gorgeous
That's
place to
a,
live.
that's a, you know.
You don't live here because it's convenient?
No,
or
I
you
live here because it was convenient. I don't expect things to always just be convenient or high density.
Well, let me ask a question to play off that real quick. How many people here tonight live, of course y'all live here, okay, I think we can get that out of the way. How many people are employed here in Pickens County? All right. How many people are employed outside of Pickens County? Technically. Okay.
You didn't cover the rest of the people.
How many people are retired? How many people are retired? Well, let's just say when you were working, were you working in Pickens County? Or did you move? Who moved here after they retired? Anybody? All right. Very good. I think that covers the group there. Well, I think in looking at that, what we saw with the survey, what we see with the data is that a lot of people actually, they live in the county because they like to live here, not because of the convenience, because of the scenery and whatnot. And they may work in another county. They may have a pretty heavy commute to do that. So, moving forward, any more weaknesses regarding economic development? Yes, sir.
Sewer on the board.
Telecommunications.
Telecommunications.
Internet.
Telecommunications being maybe a lack specifically of broadband. Okay, so that's a big thing. That also affects a lot of the younger folks now. It's certainly not myself first. They took me almost 30 minutes to get my computer to play the picture up there. So I'm not a tech guy, but there's a lot of people, the millennial generation, that are into a lot of technology, and now because of the incredible advances in technology, people can work from home very effectively, and a lot of people choose to telecommunicate and do so very effectively. But those folks do love to live. They like the low-density areas. They want to live somewhere like Pickens County, where things are more quiet, beautiful views, lots of natural, cultural resources, history, and what have you. But the problem that a lot of them run into is that if they don't have broadband access, then they don't have that ability to work from home. If you can't work from home, well, that kind of rules the community out for that type of individual. So that is a very, very a good point you brought up there. It's something that the entire region is looking at. There are a lot of communities, especially those that are low density population, that don't have broadband, and there's no fiscally prudent way for the broadband providers to get hard lines out to very low density populated areas because of return on investment. So there's a lot of studies and a lot of tactics going on right now to figure out the best way to do that. So thank you for bringing that up. Any more weaknesses on economic development?
One of the things is not using the plans that we already have.
Not implementing the plans that we already have.
Not whatever comprehensive plan we have on the shelf, more than likely we have not addressed all those issues.
Very good.
Although we have the plan, we have put it in action.
Well, that each community will have to do what's called a report of accomplishment as we finish this, as we're kind of rounding out into this plan. And that report of accomplishment is essentially a report card on the last work program. That work program was talking about the projects and the information. Well, when the 5-year rolls out, that each community has to go back and look at the last community work program. They have to go through project by project and say, did we complete this? Did we not complete it? If we didn't complete it, why didn't we complete it? Was it a lack of funding? Did the administration change? Obviously, the economy is going to play a big part in that, which during the period of the last plan was probably one of the lowest points in the last couple of decades. So we expect to see a certain amount of incomplete projects for lack of funding and such. So my goal is, when we write this plan, is to come up with specific projects that are accurate and that are obtainable. And that's something that we didn't see so much in the previous planning, again, because it was so bureaucratic that you saw a lot of projects that were very generalized, very hard to answer, to say, yeah, we completed or no, we didn't. They were kind of ambiguous, if you will. And so we're going to go around this time, we're going to make some better projects and hope for a real good completion rate.
Yeah, this is kind of a funny with that John Faust, Georgia, our city of Jasper. This is kind of, but we don't have the ball fields and gyms for bringing people that have kids and families. If you're going to bring them in here, you need that.
Okay.
I mean, we're limited. Everything we got stuck.
Very good. When you say recreation, ball fields, things like that, y'all have a lot of natural land. What about like trails and outdoor hiking, all that kind of stuff? So you've got that stuff. What you're talking about sports recreation.
Sports recreation.
See, I tend to disagree. I think we, as far as what we do have is the kids and the sports activities themselves and the teams themselves, I think we're sufficient in that category. But as far as the trails and tapping into those natural resources, we haven't done that yet.
Okay, so we need to look more
into.
into.
We're going in that direction in a lot of ways. We haven't tapped there.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a perception, and I don't know if it's fact, that Jasper and Pickens County are difficult to do business in, that taxes are higher, that it's bureaucratic, and the alcohol taxes are higher, so that deters restaurants. So there's just, I've heard discussion from, potential restaurants who no.
Are these potential restaurants franchise operations or local mom and pops?
More smaller operations that might be branching into a second restaurant or
I see.
something of the sort. But there is a definite perception, and that can be addressed. Whether if it's correct, we fix it. If it's not correct, then we, address it through, PR or something.
Okay. Well, we had some folks say some things that sort of curtail that in the survey, and one of the things was what would you like to see more of, or something along those lines. And I think there was some banter back and forth of what kind of restaurants and things like that would you like to see. Do people want to see more local establishments when it comes to retail and restaurants, or would you rather see more big box, more franchise, fast food and Longhorn and that sort of thing? Or would you rather see, Bob's Steakhouse? being a local person that lives in the county, you know, you see local business or inside. So is that something we see in this room? We'll take kind of a vote here. Who thinks the more important thing to do would be to get, you know, franchise, big box, that sort of thing? Who thinks that's important to get those businesses to come to town? Nobody? All right.
As far as,
I think we're gonna have a
depending on
balance.
the space you're talking about, if you're talking about big box stores, I think we're set in that direction.
Okay.
As far as the chain of restaurants, probably not. I mean, speaking here for a lot of people, but I think we're pretty set on restaurants.
Yeah, well, I might say more local.
Or character.
Correct.
I mean, local on,
And
because
that's what I was talking about, is the
I
chain.
believe though, if we don't bring in those chains or even those stores, they're gonna come in the counties, but on the north side of us and the south side of us.
Or people
So-
will go outside the county and spend the money there.
Exactly, so
Right.
why not open up the idea of being more diverse with your restaurants and your stores?
Right.
But at the same time, I also like to add that it would be nice to have kids parks for families to take their kids to on either the west end or even the east end of the county, because there's really nowhere for.
So let's talk about parks and recreation in the east and west of the county. So we're looking more at the county there. The cities have their parks and things like that for people to come to, so maybe it's the county that need to focus on parks and recreation. Jerry?
I'd like to make 2 points. You know, one, I think one of the challenges that we have is that, you know, we would like to see certain things happen, such as increased parks and other things. But when the government, whether it's the city or county, you know, talks about taxes, there is a significant amount of resistance to, you know, have a tax increase or sometimes even pay the school tax. And, you know, everything comes from money. Now, you know, you've got to, if you want certain things, there's a price, and that's not a fun. I mean, there's a cost to all these things. And so sometimes I feel like we want certain things, but we're not willing to pay the cost. And the other thing, the other point along those same lines I'm going to make, same thing with a lot of these chain type restaurants and other establishments. They all need customers. And they have very specific requirements of population within a geographic area. If you don't meet that criteria, it's not going to come. Now, some communities, one of my standing jokes is that in Stone Mountain, Georgia, the only thing still there from 30 years ago is Hal's Liquor Store and my father-in-law. Because it used to be a very nice community, and what they did in order to help bring those things in, they started building apartments just about seemingly on every corner. But that's a standard economic development model to bring in the population to support that growth. But it has a cost to it. And, you know, everybody, you know, basically said, you know, we moved out here because, not because of convenience, because we like the space, we like the atmosphere, but at the same time, we'd like to have all that stuff. You know, so we've got to, you know, there's a cost there. There's a decision to be made as it relates to future planning and how we move forward in our community. So, you know, there's a cost to everything, and we have to make decisions about what we want. And if we don't have it, we have to understand that there's a reason why we have it.
Well, as he said, he's here not because of the convenience.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you're willing to accept the inconvenience,
He's still here.
maybe more people will move here because they're willing to accept the inconvenience.
Well, I think there's definitely a certain percentage will.
Okay, in essence of time, now we've talked a lot about weaknesses. As we move forward, we've got quite a while to work on this project. Just to bounce things off everybody tonight and cover some ground. If anybody, again, just like I was talking about photos, where to go and places to go, y'all are welcome to reach out to Richard and myself. And if you want to go, hey, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of time to work the other night, and just bullet point maybe some other issues and things like that. And after we get done tonight, you want to add to some things, then we will do that. And we may schedule some more meetings. We may find out with the input you guys are bringing in tonight that y'all have a lot of things to say, which is very good. And we want to make sure we give everybody a chance to have that input. So let's go now as far as strengths. What strengths do we have, or y'all have, in regards to economic development? We talked a lot about weaknesses, what you don't have. What do you have?
We got roads, we got railroads.
Railroads, yeah, absolutely.
We got an east-west connector with 53, 108.
Now we're talking about roads.
That's roads.
Roads, okay.
And then we
Roads,
got Route
railroads.
15. Railroad, I said both.
Major corridors, okay,
We've
both rail.
we've got a way to bring merchandise wherever it needs to go.
Yeah.
Proximity to Atlanta. We are
Proximity to Atlanta, that's a big.
the small town, but still close enough to get there if we need to.
515 and 30 on the road.
Good road.
You got the airport? Airport?
Hospital.
Hospital.
It's already got it. We got good emergency services here for a small county.
Good emergency services, well, that's very important. I think I missed one. There was a lady who mentioned something that I think I missed.
Proximity to Atlanta, no,
Got that.
okay.
Something else that was mentioned.
There's a hospital.
Airport.
Yeah,
Airport area.
We have an active chamber of commerce.
Very good, very good. Active Chamber of Commerce. That is a big part of it. They do a lot for attracting those jobs and businesses.
Technical college.
Technical College?
Yeah.
That's very good. Just sat in the other day on the House Rural Economic Development Committee. And they had a big discussion on technical colleges and how that's going to be a big part of the future of basically attracting jobs and manufacturing in our community. Yes,
Do you have
sir.
any idea of the technical graduates here, how many of them are able to find a job in the county?
That would be a good question for Jerry, possibly the technical college on that one. I do not have that information.
Yeah, I don't have that statistic on my fingertips, but I can find it, I'm sure. Or if they keep that record.
Based on the programs they teach over there, it's relatively small. So the big things over there right now, and Jim can address this, are, automobile, welding. Don't have enough students to fill all the jobs in welding. Their medical assist program, those are the big programs. And then their online courses.
Okay, so we've got the Technical College, Chamber of Commerce, we got a lot of good things there for strengths and economic development. Anything else before we move forward?
Well, for economic development, a school system in any community is either going to help or hurt it. It's normally not going to be totally neutral. It wasn't listed as a weakness. Nobody's mentioned it as a strength either. What's the general feeling?
Strength.
Strength is strength.
I think it's a strength.
Yeah.
Since
We're perceived against other areas was very cool.
Yeah, you can look at our
graduation rate, it has to be strength.
Stats,
yeah,
graduation rates.
graduation rates and.
I want to say the graduation rate was actually higher than the state average.
It is 94,
Test scores.
Yeah, that's pretty good. A skilled workforce, as that would be referred to, is a great strength.
Got natural resources too, far as the mines and the mineral in the ground.
Okay, so mines, minerals, natural resources, so. And the mountains, the scenic views, that's a big player. Tourism, absolutely. Yes,
I think
ma'am.
we have a little evolving niche of automotive specialty stuff. The, Jeep Fest and the
Okay,
associated.
right. Yeah, you got kind of a landmark
things
over
and
there at
the tri-
Jasper
the-
Jeep
the
there.
People who outfit the three-wheel motorcycles and things like that. So
Okay.
it's, an Alfa
What's-
Romeo
Yeah,
mechanic in town. I mean, really?
absolutely. Yeah, we guys like our toys. Yeah, a lot of places
Economic
like-
strength is our thrift store that supports all the nonprofits across the way. So thrift store is we don't always see it as a major business, but that $5 million that they've given to the community that's a massive amount.
It's pretty significant.
That wouldn't be as long as
I don't know whether you call this a strength, but maybe it's the opportunity with the VA clinic that's supposed to come to town. That'll bring a lot of folks from North Georgia, because I believe it's supposed to serve the entire North Georgia area.
So that could be, again, part of the healthcare, just bettering the healthcare and all that in general. Okay, so,
Let me mention one more thing. They mentioned Piedmont. We also want to mention community health. What we have over here in this community health program really means that everybody in the county has medical services that's available to them regardless of insurance or ability to pay. So the community health over here at Good Samaritan has to be a strength.
very good point.
All the community services.
Okay, so just real quick, I think we kind of cover weaknesses, and a lot of times the weaknesses and threats can be a lot alike. So if we're talking about threats, not repeating what we've just sort of talked about as weaknesses real quick, what's a threat to the economic development of Pickens County and all your cities?
Missing out because it goes somewhere else.
Okay, so people are going there when you mean that. So are you talking about when people go other places, are you talking about the people go other places to spend their money, or people go other places to work, or both?
I'm talking about both. I'm talking about the industry looking for a place to build.
Okay, so the industry's going somewhere else?
The industry goes someplace else, the jobs go someplace else. If the schools are not that good, folks with families, with kids, aren't as inclined to come here as they might be otherwise. There's just a lot of things. It's a great reason to be here, but there's a lot of reasons that it may not last forever.
I think there's potential of a tax increase out there that could be problematic, a property tax increase.
That can certainly affect things.
Well, that was coming in. I think that's driven by lack of industry.
Right,
That would certainly help.
I think the old cliche is that bedrooms don't necessarily pay the bills. When you run a community, you need the major employers or revenue generators and what have you to generate those large amounts of income to get taxed. Which again, you mentioned earlier, Jerry mentioned as far as taxing and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of communities out there that will practically, as they say, give away the farm and abate companies and industries to the point that they really don't get any return on investment. By the time the abatement policy's up, those folks leave town and those jobs go with them. And so there's that trade-off there that sort of mentioned and touched on earlier. Yes, sir.
Social moralities, anything that can be skewed from your trout stores, I'm thinking off of actual stores that are here already, but all the way to drugs. Drugs, yeah. I mean, we have a huge problem right now with methamphetamines and the trafficking in drugs.
It's not as bad as it was.
Well, not as bad as it was, but whether you're talking about one drug or another, it always differs for every 10 years. And as someone who works in the social services industry, that's on a daily occurrence. I see this kind of stuff.
What was that industry you said?
Social services.
Social service. Okay, there. Yes. Yes, with more low-income population, the statistic is generally higher with the drug use, where it be non-prescription or not. Yes.
And along the lines of income, 50% of the kids in the schools are on free and reduced lunch.
Or no.
Well, that's what I heard.
Okay. So there's a certain amount of poverty in the community.
More like 66.
Yes, sir.
Population demographics and aging population. And population demographics, aging population, we're not.
Okay. So as far as available workforce and that sort of thing, and next generation, so on and so forth. Let's see. Why did you mention one more time? Let me go touch on that.
The low income.
Low income, okay.
Students, more than 50%. He says it might be 66%.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a mention of something just from an observational standpoint and looking at some of your data. You guys, I think, are at tax tier 3. I want to say, is it right? 4? 4. Very good. Okay, so you're way up there in tax credits. So you're saying there's still a decent amount of poverty with the kids on health care. So maybe what's happening is a big,
skewed.
Right, you've got a large, a small population with a large amount of wealth and a large population with much less means.
Exactly right.
Okay, so right, that's kind of like the global economy, what they call it, the 1% or whatever that has 90% of the world's wealth and whatnot. So same concept there. Just wanted to clarify that, make sure you guys were in agreement with that. So okay, we talked about economic development. We've sort of beat that horse for the sake of time. Let's talk about housing. Housing. What are the weaknesses for housing?
Very little new housing.
Okay, so not a lot of houses being built right now.
not new houses.
New houses.
Plenty of old houses.
Okay, so you got a big existing housing stock, but you're not building a lot of new houses.
Well, there's no spec homes. Most of the housing here is custom.
I think after 2008, we see that nationwide, really. Only some communities that are having a big industrial impact are really building right now.
There's a shortage of houses now, of people looking for homes. Prices have gone up.
More buyers than
Especially
sellers.
200,000.
More buyers and sellers. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I
it's
mean, that's a general across the nation, but it's definitely.
so you guys got a seller's market going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, very good, very
I thought it
good.
was
Well,
interesting that last week, I believe it was in the Pickens Progress, there was not one house for sale. Not one. There was one half-acre lot, I think, but no homes. There were several for rent, but nothing for sale. That was the first time I think I've ever opened Pickens Progress, and there was 0 houses.
okay.
And I know where we are, which is up in Monument Falls, you know, the concern is we're on wells and, you know, the last well I heard was at 1,000 feet and they still hadn't found water.
That's
And if
probably
every
right.
lot gets developed, will there be enough water?
Right, and yeah, there's going to be a few people that are going to pay the giant wad of cash it's going to take to get a drilling company to drill that far down. So that's a good point. So that goes back to water and sewer availability in direct relation to housing. So that's really going to affect housing, economic development, and the community facility services. We're going to talk about infrastructure and all that. So that's a reoccurring thing. Expect to see that in several different topics. Yes, sir.
Go back again to sewers and schools, because most of your larger builders that build tract subdivisions that would get starter homes that are more attractive to younger families, they're not going to build on septic. Many of them, as a rule, prohibit that.
And that goes with larger companies,
So-
businesses.
So your bigger companies need the smaller lots, which you can only do if you've got some kind of a system. It could be a package system, but it has to be a system.
Right,
And it's the same.
and there's a lot of liability with septic systems as well. And there's all kinds of with EPD and EPA now with that. So sewer is much more attractive if you're looking to build a home or business. So that's a very good point.
That all assumes if you want higher density.
That's right. We go back to that question earlier. Where is that optimal density? Where is, you know, if you start growing and you grow too fast, you get too dense, you change the entire character of the community. So we're going to come back to that. In the next meeting we're going to set out what we call the goals. We're going to talk about maybe a community vision statement. We're going to come back and look at what we talked about here tonight. We're going to see this information that we came about here tonight. Some people like to do goals before this, but I like to do it afterwards because everybody's kind of thinking about things. We sort of look and see about this density and about this lack thereof, or do you want to stay low density and all that stuff. So you need to figure out, as you're thinking and going along, what's the goal of the community? So keep that in mind as we're talking tonight, because we definitely want to be consistent there. But lack of sewer availability, nonetheless, is definitely going to be a threat or a weakness if you're looking to get more houses or more businesses. So, any other threats specifically to housing?
The relative attractiveness of Yammer schools. Somebody's looking here versus somewhere else. I've talked to a lot of people who've looked in Pickens and they've looked in other communities, and they've gone to other communities because they don't like what they see with the schools in Pickens County.
I'm gonna make sure we have somebody here next time from the school board or school system, because I strongly disagree with what you're saying.
I'm talking about perception for families that have kids.
Well, I'm talking about reality though. And again, I'll have somebody from the school
Real
system
people
here.
that have gone to the school, talked to them and said, I'm never gonna send my kid here.
Well, what are they saying specifically?
I'll just
That
have
where
somebody
their
here.
kid- if they're coming in, for example, in third grade, what their kids are at third grade somewhere else is so far above where the third graders are here.
I
That
moved
they're
here
stepping
11
back.
years ago with 3 kids, and the whole reason why I moved here was because of Pickens County Schools.
We have kids that graduated class this year, MIT, multiple kids at Georgia Tech, all over the country. Northwestern, it's changed a lot in the last 6 or 8 years. And somebody should be here.
Well, that may be a good topic for our next meeting. If someone is here, maybe we can have that discussion and maybe talk a little bit about that. And we can all come to some sort of an agreement of strength, weakness, and we can come to that point. But for right now, threats to housing, I think we've covered a pretty good bit there. Let's talk about strengths. What strengths do you have with the housing that's here?
You've got that elbow room that we talked about before.
Big pardon?
You've got that elbow room to spread out before.
Elbow room, okay.
We've talked about that, yeah.
Low density is
We're a bedroom community for a reason.
So go back and sort of beat those points again.
You know, even though I think this is free, some people may disagree, but even in the pits of the recession, you know, real estate got hit hard everywhere, but it wasn't quite as bad here as it was in a lot of other areas. And I think part of that's because, like Steve said, we do have elbow room, and it's still a desirable place to live.
Location.
We should look at that from maybe a different perspective. There's a whole lot of undeveloped lots up Burnt Mountain Road. And then, I'm not sure of Big Canoe specifically, but I know, well,
There's nearly 2,000 lots in our building.
okay,
And
then that
Big
just
Tree, same
reinforces
thing.
what I'm saying. There are a lot of undeveloped lots.
So do you call that an opportunity or a weakness? What are we classifying that
I
as?
think it is a product of where the economy tanked, because prior to 2008, I think there was pretty good average number of homes being built, and then that just dropped off.
Right.
And I know we're just now seeing new construction.
Right. And that's clear across the board. We see that represented.
But there is a ton of undeveloped lots.
Okay. All right. Tina?
I think that's actually a strength, because the people that were living in Cobb and DeKalb and the more congested areas that want to come out and want a fresh start, there were a lot of lots as a result of the bad economy, but I think it's actually a strength now because people want to build, they want to custom build.
Right.
Having those lots available will be a pull.
Yeah, you've got prepared land that's ready to go, basically. Are we talking pipe farms here that already have utilities and things run, or are we just talking cleared flat lots? So it's ready, put a house on it. Okay, well, I consider that an opportunity or a strength, because you've got land ready to go for people who are looking for a place to build. And that's one less thing you have to go through. Yes?
Yes, but someone mentioned about the big lots and the big house, except we have 50% or 60% of our children that qualify for lunch programs. So I don't know that we're providing the housing that's needed.
So affordable housing, you think
It's lacking, it's definitely lacking.
that maybe there need to be some houses that
Definitely
are,
lacking.
yeah, starter houses, if you will, the smaller family houses we were talking about earlier, younger families and things wanting to move here, and a little lower overhead.
But again, that affects the sewer, because you build the smaller houses, the developer is not gonna make as much money, so they're not gonna, and everyone insists on the big lots in Pickens. And I think it's a way of restricting, actually, I think it's a way of restricting beginner homes.
Providing services in those homes is really difficult.
But you still have 50% of your population that qualifies for food.
Right, but providing sewer and water to those
I
lower
agree.
valued homes, it's not covered by their taxes. So it puts you in a hole. Whereas
Well, you
Pickens
have
does.
citizens.
If we attract more
But you have
school-age
to-
kids, it puts us
But the
in.
trouble with the system is we're tier 4. That it's hard to get any kind of system.
Right, you're talking about the subsidies and things like that to help move those houses for lower income individuals, right? So that's where the tier 4 can, again, it can step in there. There's something though that we can make a point of that in this plan, that, you know, when somebody looks at it, again, a bureaucrat that doesn't know Pickens County, they don't know about that gap of individuals. They may not spot that all of a sudden. So we'll try to highlight that in this plan to make that point, so that when you're looking at if that becomes a project that a community wants to do, is to look at building some affordable more affordable housing, then, you know, they need to draw attention to that income gap. So, okay, that's talking about strengths. Any more strengths specifically related to housing or maybe not opportunities?
I'd like to throw out one thing on housing that we've come back economically from 2008, I think overall, but the gap there seems to be that housing and cost per square foot to build a house, whether it's, regardless of which price point you're talking about, has escalated so much since then that there's this big gap there where people can't afford to build any houses and make any money, so this is just not happening anymore. The cost of construction is escalated to the
Just
point.
the coattail on the back of that a little more though, especially speaking for the millennial generation here, I can tell you that there's a lot of my individuals in that generation that are looking at the differences between owning and renting. And we're kind of shunning this idea of ownership, either because we can't afford it, or a lot of other variables that fall into that category. But I can name off a whole laundry list of my friends that are in the same category. They've made that decision to rent, or they have said, you know what, there's not. Well, there's that too. Yeah, there's living in the basement of mom and daddy's. Yeah. Do what?
How about their student loan statement?
I was gonna say,
fabulous.
student loan. But they're also looking more towards efficiency type living, you know, townhomes.
I think the word that's being used now in the trend is minimalism.
Yeah.
Not having.
They're not looking
big
for.
over.
When's the last time you heard tiny house? I mean, it's all over.
Right, tiny houses. Please don't bring that up.
If we can bring millennials in who don't have kids, then that might be a good thing. Let them commute to Canton and Woodstock.
It's just as hard as someone who does not have kids.
Speaking of that, now last week I heard on the radio that Cherokee County is now the fastest growing county in the state. So, you know, what is that? You know, that automatically puts us in the driver's seat for a bedroom community at Cherokee County.
Expand that a little bit more.
Dawson too.
And Forsyth, from a development perspective, is just about built out.
Yeah.
So it's coming to Cherokee. This is going to be a bedroom community before you know it.
It's gonna happen.
And that's probably in this next 10 years.
Right.
Yes.
Right, I think, yes.
I mean, I do want to say, if we're trying to draw, our idea is to draw the high school graduates back, just like Stephen was saying, they're not going to buy those larger homes. I mean, the elephant in the room is apartment complexes. We don't have any, whether we want them or not. If you're wanting to draw that renter type millennial back to Jasper, we're going to have to offer them somewhere to live.
And it's just not apartments, it's also townhomes.
That's
townhomes.
That's a good point.
Because they actually get to own the townhome, but they don't have no maintenance. They can go play.
I think what we need to say here instead of.
Past the cottages there that, you know, got trying to build back.
I think what we're trying to get at here is maybe the word affordable housing may not be the way to say it, but maybe it's more diverse housing.
Entry
Yeah,
level.
that's something like that.
So diversify the housing, basically. Okay, that's a very good point to make, and I will curtail that by saying, as a millennial, I don't really associate in a lot of ways with millennials for those things. I'm not respective of that group, but I do have a lot of friends, much like yourself, that follow in that exact same mentality. Me personally, you know, I'd like owning a house and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not very much representative of the millennial generation. Yes, sir.
I may be wrong in my understanding of this Tier 4, but isn't the real threat to our housing the fact that we are a Tier 4, but the Tier 4 is based on incomes? And what happens being a Tier 4 is you lose some of your property taxes. And so because we have high income people living in smaller houses because they're retired and are downsizing, and we have low-income people that are living in smaller houses, but we're still a Tier 4 area. So the state program where they take money from property taxes in a Tier 4 county, our our development is threatened by the fact that we lose money to the state because of our Tier 4 status based on income, because we have all these high rollers that move to Big Canoe and Bentry and other places, but have small houses with low property tax, with low property values. So what property tax we do get is, some of that is going off to the state. So that's really a threat to our development, being the fact that we are at Tier 4.
Okay. I'm going to jump to something real quick that kind of goes ahead. It'll probably spill over into land use. But since we're talking about the subject, since it was brought up, that you're talking about bedroom community, Cherokee County is growing so fast that your spillover is going to happen eventually. And it can happen whether you want it to or not. It happens to a lot of places. And the key is to be prepared for those individuals in one way or another. And one way to be prepared for them is for us, again, to be thinking about with this plan, what's the goal for Pickens County? Do y'all want to keep that low density, or do you want to start working towards being able to accommodate it? And where do you want to accommodate it? Obviously, the cities would be the first place to look. Where is your infrastructure already feasible and prudent to expand? And where can you do that at? And then once you figure out where those areas need to occur, where you'd like them to occur, where they can occur more easily, the way to strengthen that is that Pickens County has zoning, land use regulations that can set densities. Of course, if you rely on right now, probably what's setting your density more than anything, Richard, you could talk to this more than I could, certainly, is probably the health department as far as soil perking and things like that are going to right now probably set your small lot sizes. Would that be fairly right?
In the county, there's not sewer except Sharp Mountain Business Park and Bethany Mooring subdivision. And 95% of the land in the county is going to be zoned agriculture, rural residential, which is typically minimum lot size of 2, 3, 4, 5 acres or more, unless it's in a gated community. And then it's zoned specially, but that's going to be an unusual case, Big Canoe, Bent Tree. So then the vast majority of land is zoned agriculture, which is of course extremely low density, or rural residential, which is very low density. So I mean, if density is going to occur, if high development is going to occur, it's not going to occur in the county. And it'll be a decision obviously up to Jasper and the smaller towns and cities to see if they want density.
Excellent point to make. So that's something to be thinking about. And again, land use is one way to do that, again, as part of the utilities.
So the county's decided they don't want density.
That's the way I
That's what they've decided.
That's what you just said, but the county doesn't want density, so if it's going to happen, it needs to happen in town.
It would be a huge uphill battle for somebody to, for example, try to rezone 25 acres of land zoned agriculture or rural residential to, plan, a new planned development on half-acre lots or something like that.
I just want to make sure.
Richard, why would that be an uphill battle if part of the planning process is one of our goals? We'd like to see that at least some coordinated effort to have some identified areas that meet all the special criteria. Why could that not happen? Why would that be uphill?
It may change. The current cultural and political environment in the county is such that if anybody wanted to rezone to commercial or rezone to high-density residential, it would have a low probability of being approved.
So neighbors next to that subdivision that didn't want that subdivision causing problems and all that kind of thing, or?
I wouldn't call it problems. I would say, again, it's cultural and political reality. I mean, if low density is desired, it's not necessarily a good or bad thing, it's what's desired.
So I was going to say annexation. Max, how do you feel about the dollar store on this bill? What side were you on?
I was against the dollar store.
Never mind, no more questions. Step down.
Let me say this, I was against the dollar store being built on the other side of the road, which was not approved. And then I was still against the dollar store being built, and it was approved on the
Have you
other
shot
side
there?
of the
Have you
road.
shot there yet?
And if you can explain that to me.
Have you shot there yet, Max?
Yeah, no.
Why not? They got great milk and potatoes there.
Maybe the city should have annexed.
Potatoes. Well, right across the road from us, Rob Wood.
Okay, so let's recap. We talked about housing, we talked about your strengths, sort of weaknesses and threats to housing. We sort of touched earlier on natural and cultural resources as it pertains to the workforce. Is everybody satisfied with what we said about housing? Is there any great big thing that we need to mention about housing that has not been said or at least hinted at?
I was mentioning one thing, Cherokee County, 10 years ago, they, the county, since it's not such a large county, they routed the sewer from some city and brought the sewer out to rural areas so that they could build much smaller homes. So they built a tremendous amount of small homes in Cherokee County in really rural land because of how they routed the sewer from Holly Springs or Canton or wherever. And, you know, it's almost like a pig trail.
Well, sewer and water it's sort of the old cliche, if you build it, they will come. Put the sewer there, the developers can come there. But the question we're asking here tonight is that what Pickens County needs or wants?
Or can afford.
Right. Is that feasible or prudent, or is it a good move for Pickens County to go in that direction? Or does Pickens County and the cities, and again, the move for Pickens County may be, again, as Richard stated, folks in the county, as a lot of people do who move out into the county, they want a certain less regulation, they want lower density. So the cities, they may make decisions that are to compensate for higher density housing if they wanted to, if that was something they saw as important. So the cities can move in a different direction than the counties if they choose to do so. So that is.
There's a bigger problem. There's a bigger problem. Is the county to provide for the citizens that live in their county? Is that one of their purposes? And if they're not meeting the needs of that, if they're not meeting the needs of those citizens,
right. So
I mean, is that not part of the planning?
Well, that's what we're asking tonight.
So they have to declare what services they're going to provide. That's part of this process, right?
Well, there is
Cities and counties.
Okay, there is a service delivery strategy as part of this that they have to decide and agree on who's doing what, where it's going to go, and who's taking responsibility for that. That is another part, sort of, it's on the same timeline as the comprehensive plan, but it's a separate process. So, but again, tonight what we're looking at is where do those services need to be? Do the cities, you know, as far as serving the community, providing services for the individuals that are already here, or creating an environment to attract new citizens? What is that there? Obviously, you know, most people say you need to take care of what you got before you get more. So you figure out, as far as that goes, what needs to be done in those subjects. What needs to be done better that's not being done now?
Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Yes, sir, Mayor.
Okay. All right. We all discussing and everything. I think the biggest threat that we have and the biggest thing that we don't have is water. The city of Jasper is the only one that has a treatment plant other than Big Moon and Bent Tree. You know, that actually has water system. So that's going to deter whether or not we have housing, you know, growth and stuff, because if we don't have water, the people that we're buying water from Cherokee County, Gilmer County, Gordon County, and other places, they're growing too, and sooner or later they're going to cut us off. So if you don't have the water source in here, then that's going to be a threat.
That's a limitation, right?
A limitation, all right? And then the other limitation that we have is sewer, because, you know, like I said, we have the government, the county, saying that we want to have 5-acre lots or bigger lots to develop. So you know, you've got to have the septic tanks and stuff like that, which pollutes the ground. I mean, that's all it is. So the next step is planning for a sewer. And, you know, the larger lot sizes limits people to buy. I can't own 5 acres because everybody's price of 5 acres is $100 grand or $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. By the time you do that, and then you build a house, then you're $160,000 to $200,000, which a homeowner, a worker, a low income, let's say a low income or a working family trying to raise a family can't afford.
Or anybody employed in Pickens County.
So, and then you talk about services. You know, we want services, but we don't want to pay for it because we don't want taxes because we have senior citizens in here, and not joking, but everybody wants a tax break. Well, the tax break, you know, somebody's got to put up, you know, pay for it. So that's right now up to me and everybody that's working. So to have fire trucks, ambulances and stuff, and if you grow a community, you have to have a station there. And a station is going to cost, you know, $250,000, $300,000 to build an ambulance service and fire. A fire truck is going to cost you $300,000, $400,000. That's not even equipment. Then you've got firemen. Firemen work 24 hours a day, you know, and then you're off 48. And then you got to have those. And other towns and stuff, you know, they go to work, you know, making more money than you can pay here, other than me and a couple others that enjoy serving the community. So the big thing is like I say, what do you want? And it's going to cost.
Well,
You know, it's either going to cost on more population, more density, or if you want those things and less people, then our taxes are going to go high.
Or we diversify our tax base so that we're not so dependent on the residential property tax.
So then that means.
It comes back to economic development.
Okay, so that means that you have to have sewer.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to sewer and water. So the thing about it is I don't think, I mean, other than the city of Jasper, I mean, I don't think the county has ever really looked at it. I mean, you know, it's going to take years. It's going to take regulations and stuff. But until you do that, the city of Jasper is going to be where it's at. If the city of Jasper runs sewer and water, you know, that's where the growth's going to be.
Doesn't the city of Jasper own the water rights to most of the water in the unincorporated parts of Pickens County?
Well,
I think they do.
Okay, here's the reason why. Okay, let's say, I mean, you know, I won't city water or county or whatever. Okay, at the time, they was the only ones that had it, so their service area is larger. It's not their fault. It's because people want water. Because the county does not have a water source.
So we're limited by the amount of water that is available, and our
Yeah.
population is planning for that limited population.
Well, yeah, but like I said, you can't have everything without some kind of cost. You've got to have money, you've got to have sewer. I mean, we're all smart people, and we can't live here and thinking that we can make $100,000. I know good well I can make $100,000, $200,000 working for City of Jasper because they don't have the tax break. So you have to realize, and you have to live within your means, is what I guess you say. So, I mean, we can't have everything other than we have to pay. I mean, things cost money.
I just think everyone mentions, and I think you hear this all the time, that we've got to have water because we have manufacturing. The world now is services, it's distribution centers. Gwinnett County is making a fortune off of tech people sitting at a computer programming for the world.
Right, but
And so I don't think having business is manufacturing this water.
well, it's water because you have to have water to survive. If you have industry, the people want to work where the industry is. So you're going to have housing. So then you got to have water. More water means low pressure. You know, out on the west end, when the fire departments and stuff started, you know, the west end, you know, you turn on a fire hydrant and gosh, you have 100 psi pressure. But now, as more and more people ties on to that, that's less and less pressure. All right, so then you have to have booster stations and stuff. You know, like I say, infrastructure is where it's at in zoning, but like I say, you got to determine what you want. You want 5-acre lots, you want acre lots. To get that, you got to talk to the county commissioners and tell them what you want. I mean, they work for us. You know, so I mean, well, they're supposed to. And if you, just like when they was raising taxes last time, I bet you, this room is where we met, and I bet you there was about as many people here that was there as far as raising cane about taxes. Well, where was everybody else? You know, I mean, if you want change, you got to go out there and ask for it. You got to go ask for change. You got to go ask for what you want. You can't let somebody else just one or two, because numbers is what shows. I guarantee you, if you go to the city of Jasper and you have 200 or 300 people, or a little bit more, and you say, well, you want this, well, they've got to at least listen to you. They've got to at least, you know, bring it up and talk about it. But if we just think, well, somebody else is going to do it for us, and we let, you know, the commissioners decide for us, then, you know, we don't have a fight. I mean, you know. So we have to, as a community, as a whole, have to figure out what we want. Do we want where we can not see our neighbor and not have fire service, water, sewer, and garbage, and higher taxes? Or do we want services and get something for our tax money? Now, that's one thing to make a living, and a lot of us retired folks is, you know, doing antiquing or a thrift store, or, you know, just something small, a couple of people, you know, working. But like I say, we got to, and I think the number one thing is water and sewer. You know, I mean, it's, if you want to grow.
If you don't have the resources of water to begin with, though, how does that?
Well, what you have, now here's what you have to do. And like I say, I work for the city of Jasper. But here's what you got to do. The county and the city have to work together and figure out some kind of way to make a reservoir. I mean, figure out something that we have water source heated. And that's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, because there's regulations, EPA, UPD, you know, there's hoops and stuff that you have to go for. But, you know, like I say, you got to start it now. But, you know, like I say, we got to have our own water source. We have to have a reservoir or something to do. Now, I mean, the county's in worse shape than the city. The city's doing fine. I mean, they're looking. But, you know, like I said, the county, I just don't see the county looking.
Dr. Proctor, you were going to say something?
Gosh, man, that was 20 minutes.
45. I mean, I kept listening. I mean, you know, like I say, I mean, we all want something.
Thank you,
but we got to pay for it one way or the other. We got to either pay for it with people, with taxes, with something. I mean, it's not free. It's not free. I mean, you know.
Let me help Randy out. You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
First of all, he worked at the city of Jasper this morning. I'm not sure about tomorrow. I'm kidding, man. I'm kidding. He's very important to me and us. And also, I don't think we can handle 300 people at City Hall. It's too small. I want, if you would, this group right here, and those viewers at home, I want to ask a question I think will capsule everything that Randy said. And a simple poll. And I want to give you the question. Would you choose to live in Pickens County in Jasper, Georgia, or would you rather live South Atlanta in Jonesboro, Stockbridge, or one of those cities that 15 years ago was about on par with Jasper and Cherokee County North? Now let me ask which one of you guys want to load up this afternoon or tonight or tomorrow and pack up and move there versus your quality of life that you have in Pickens County? The only thing we're talking about here is quality of life. You got a job, you want a job, or you want to move. Randy could get a job in Stockbridge tomorrow if he'd call down and apply. He's a qualified fireman, and he would have those skills, but he chooses to live in Talking Rock and work in Jasper, Georgia. And every one of you I see around this room, I think, have moved to Pickens County for a reason.
Yeah.
Is you want to live in Jasper, and you like the fact that you can pull out of the driveway without waiting 30 minutes for some caravan to go by, or just traffic in general.
I'm not moving to Stockbridge, but I did say once, when they told me, you guys from RDC at the time said, in year 2030, we'll have 60,000 people living in Pickens County. And I was quoting the Pickens County Progress saying, that's when I'm moving to Sylvester, Georgia. I could not stand to imagine living in Pickens County with our quality of life, and it changed that drastic. 30,000 people is too many for Pickens County. 45 is insane, and 60, we'll be all moving somewhere else. I promise you, you would.
I think though, if you regulate it though, you can bring in growth in certain areas.
We're regulating the fact that we don't have the infrastructure you referred to a while ago. We don't, they got all these empty lots on top of the mountain.
I completely agree, but I think long range wise, that if you plan
But you
ahead
chose
for
not
that.
to have it.
And on the Monument Road, they said they had empty lots because they didn't have water. And I told this man sitting right beside me, and I told a few people a few years ago, when somebody come from Monument wanting water from the city of Jasper, I said, God wanted water there, he'd have put it there. It's quite an expense to get water up that mountain. And the reason you don't have those neighbors, you should thank God every day that I don't have these neighbors that's going to probably steal my hubcaps and I'll be afraid to go to the grocery store.
I'm worried they'll steal my water.
But I'm telling you, there's nobody in this room worried about sending their children or their family to the Jasper drugstore that they're not going to make it home alive. You go to Jonesboro, Georgia, anywhere south of the county line, you may have to worry about that. We need to protect our quality of life as long as we can, because we've got to be careful what we wish for. It's going to change whether we like it or not. And in fact, our only blessing is that we don't have enough water for 45,000 people or 60,000 people. And with that, we can regulate our community, and we can grow quality instead of numbers. If you want to make $1 million, move somewhere else. It's right here is the quality of life that we want. I think everyone in this room. Let me ask you, how many people want to move to Jonesboro? How many people want to move to Jonesboro? I'm calling a vote. Would you do it for me? I want to know how many people would rather live in Jasper, Georgia, by a show of hands, or have everything they have in Jonesboro, Georgia. Same distance from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, so you want to do it right now?
I want to do it right now.
Okay.
No, you're only giving us the option of I-20 South.
They do the same time we did, and we chose to basically stay rural, and they decided after the Olympics to go insane. And I would not live there if you gave me the land.
But how are we going to be able to provide a better quality of life for the future if we're never going to increase our taxes, our property taxes?
You got a good quality of life now.
If we don't
What's
bring
wrong
in
with what you
people,
have right now?
I'm just saying, there's some people that would argue that they want more, whether it be services or whatever. I mean, that's long term.
Where are you from? May I ask where you're from?
Talking Rock.
Talking about, born and raised.
Nope.
Where are you
I
from?
moved here.
From
Moved
where?
here from Canton, actually.
Why? Everything's in Canada.
I come
They've
here
got
for the
movie
school
theaters,
systems.
they've got restaurants, everything you possibly could want.
Yeah, but, and then there again, I have to drive all the way down there for that.
But move here because it was convenient.
15 minutes, you know why restaurants don't make it Jasper, Georgia?
But at the same time, are you gonna argue that the
You know
property
why
taxes are
restaurants
gonna
can't
go
make it Jasper, Georgia? There's a competition. Most people want to go out, they drive right on by restaurants in Jasper and go straight to Canton so they can have the novelty of picking up whatever. Our proximity is part of our weakness that you're
Why do
referring
they
to.
drive there though? Because it's not here.
But I'm telling you, if you like Canton, I'm sure they got some property to
I
save.
moved here because I wanted to be here, but I also moved here
Thank
and
you.
had over 5 acres worth of land. I'm not touching anybody, so that's not really an issue, but I do believe that there's certain counties that have areas that they need to, they can invite people back into this, to where our property taxes aren't as much as they are.
Our property taxes are not that
Or you can
high.
even grow.
Our property taxes are not that high.
I'm not worried about property taxes, but I'm telling you that there's people in this county.
I'm still, why did you move to
Provide
Jasper?
to have better
Why did you move to
services.
Talking Rock?
Sorry.
Please answer.
This is taking way too
Okay, do the poll.
I wanted to ask,
Okay, let me do this real quick. Okay, I think just to move
How
things
many would
along.
rather live in Jasper or Jonesboro, called Jasper Park?
You're giving me South I-20.
I'll give you anywhere you want to go. Where do you want to go?
There's
You want to go to Canton? Let him move to Canton, Georgia.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's generalize this just a little bit more, just to broaden the horizon, just to move along.
Just
What
a simple
about
question.
What about if we call it, instead of Jonesboro specific, what if we say Metro? The great.
I like Jonesboro. I went down and played golf down the other day. Quite a trip.
Okay, but the point you're trying to make is the reason people are here and the reason people choose to move here is because the density's lower,
You don't,
traffic's
you don't want to
calmer.
answer, let them ask the question.
Let me say this. I want to stay here, but if my children move somewhere else because they don't have anything to do here,
You
then
go
I'm gonna
visit,
be with
you
my
go
grand-
visit.
I'm gonna go be with my grandkids.
Go visit.
We
And they're
need
probably
something
gonna come back
for
The
visit,
our
survey
probably gonna come back
results
visit
said
you.
otherwise.
No,
I think so.
they're working now. I'm the one retired, I'm gonna have to go to
The
them.
survey results were factual. Out of 700 people, you said, the survey results said otherwise. So the little bar graph that you have showing that, the results were overwhelming as to what the citizens of Pickens County desired and wanted. Those that took the survey anyway.
I'm sorry, you had a question? Yes, ma'am.
I was reading the 2013 plan, and it mentioned 90 acres of land for reservoir. Does that make any sense?
What you saying?
They were
That
saying
there
that-
was 90 acres of land for reservoir?
That's a small reservoir.
In the 2013
That's not a big
plan?
reservoir.
Yeah, that's a small reservoir.
That's not a big reservoir.
Yeah, but did that happen? I mean, that didn't happen, right?
No, but I think they was looking at some land or was thinking about land.
Okay. I was just real surprised to read it.
I think they was.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just to move along on that point, let's just in this room, outside of the survey, show of hands, who would rather live here than Jonesboro? Okay. All right.
How about if Jonesboro moved up here?
You're insane.
Okay, very good. Thank y'all for playing along with that. Now, we're in overtime right now. This meeting's only supposed to go to 7:30. Would y'all like to knock 2 more of these things out real quick, or would you like us to put that on the agenda for the next meeting and let everybody go home? Contingent. Okay, thank y'all. Okay, so we just touched on infrastructure and all this other stuff. So we've sort of answered some questions already. Community facilities and services. That's infrastructure and recreation, so on and so forth. So anything that we haven't mentioned already, lack thereof, or improving what you already have, what do you think are the strengths for infrastructure? And we talked about roads, having 515, major corridors, railway, that's infrastructure. So we consider those good things, opportunities. Anything beyond that? I think the airport was mentioned as well.
I mean, I think the city of Jasper, I mean, you know, we've got stuff here, I mean, it might not be what everybody wants, but I think the city of Jasper is good.
Right, okay. You're providing, services you're providing seem to be adequate for the population that you have to satisfy who's here.
City government.
Okay, are there any threats, weaknesses with infrastructure besides what we've talked about, lack of water and sewer being a large, if the interest is to grow, have you in one way or another, then yes, water and sewer would be that threat. But do you see any other threats as far as how well do the cities and the counties maintain existing infrastructure? Do you find that there's a lot of issues with roads going a long time in disrepair? Do you find issues with things like that?
No, they do a good job.
Do a good job at it? Okay, that's great. Well, that is a strength.
We're doing that now because we've got SPOS money that's paid them, but if we'd been in here 2 years ago, we'd all been raked over the coals. I don't think we maintain, we have a lot of aging sewer systems that, you know, not the new stuff out on the corridor, but the old stuff, eventually is gonna demand some attention, but,
You mentioned the corridor. What about the 3 water tanks over there and 5 miles south of 53 and 5 miles north? There's been a lot of work done over there in those water tanks. That water tank you keep showing on the screen, that's the Woodbridge water tank. 20 years ago, that was leaking like a sieve. That's one of the only 1931 water tanks in the state of Georgia that functions. So those things have been repaired, maintained, and our infrastructure is not that bad. The lack of raw water, you've got a point. But And we got a few sewer lines from 1940s and the New Deal period that still function because of clay pipe. They're gonna have to have some attention. But we've got great infrastructure. It's the raw water source that they mentioned is the biggest issue.
Right.
In the city.
I think the traffic in and around the city, and I know there's plans to address that, but doesn't function very well right now.
So flow of traffic.
Yes.
In
the
are we-
downtown, not on 550.
Jasper. We're talking Jasper.
Proper.
Okay, Jasper congestion.
And flow.
Flow of traffic. Okay. All right. Let's see. I can play devil's advocate here.
It's still much better than the 7 o'clock Atlanta traffic, I'll say that.
That's amen to that.
You have a school system, but you have a high school that still has capacity.
You've got capacity at your high school.
Yeah, you got a high school that was built for 16,000 and it's got 14,000 population in there now. So you've got some growth available.
That's a very good point to make, because there's a lot of places right now that as soon as they get a new school built, they're already at capacity and need to start tearing down walls to add on. So that's a good opportunity or strength. Let's see, community facilities. I think, and the point was made that you've got, sounds like you've got good infrastructure or things are being maintained, that you don't have any critical issues. Obviously, if there was a big issue with your infrastructure that was a huge, problem, somebody would have brought it up immediately. So every community everywhere is going to have to continually maintain and do housekeeping, and so we expect to see that. Okay, so threats on infrastructure. I think we kind of talked about that. I think we keep going back to having your own availability of water is definitely a threat to that. Of course, reservoirs and things would be nice. So that is something to touch on. Land use. Let's talk about land use. We've already handed it that a minute ago. Talk about zoning, lot sizes, densities, what have you. You guys all have zoning, I believe. So everybody has a zoning ordinance. I think there's only 2-3 counties in our entire region that don't have zoning still. So that puts you at an advantage. You do have the ability now, at least you've got a framework and a way to control densities. So, for communities that don't have zoning, they have no say. And if they have the infrastructure there, then the developers get to call the shots. They get to say, well, we're going to build a shopping center here, and as long as they pass building inspection and things like that, they can do it. If you ride around in Atlanta, the biggest problem was it was designed and built by developers. People didn't plan it out. It was just they accommodated whoever came and made it work, and now they're dealing with those issues. And we see that in a lot of cities, I think. So land use is a big way to do that. You all have zoning ordinances. What are your strengths you guys think you have regarding that? Do you all consider, is everybody here in agreement that having your zoning ordinances is a strength?
Yes. May I add to this? I have developers call City Hall on a regular basis. You mentioned earlier it's really difficult to do business in Jasper. Only if you want to overpopulate it, it gets kind of tough. But if I could carry a zoning issue on a regular basis to the Jasper City Council or to the Planning Commission, we go to the Jasper City Council to change every acre in Jasper, Georgia to R3 multifamily. The only reason we can is because we don't have enough of this, thank goodness. But it would I could overpopulate Jasper City Council, and I could overpopulate this county in 2 years. And if you talk about spilling over from Cherokee County, it's going to be apartments. They're going to come at us. It's going to be low-income apartments that they will be able to maintain the housing for the workforce from Atlanta, Georgia. We'd be the bedroom, all right. We'd have all the issues that comes with multifamily housing. And I probably shouldn't say this. We probably have to defend ourselves in court, but we don't need the multifamily housing that's going to cost all our taxes to go up. Police officers, whatever. Firemen, all the expenses we'd have to maintain that. And this administration that I'm part of, I don't think are for that. And I've seen that from the council already. So,
I don't remember ever being asked, John.
You haven't had an opportunity. You haven't been there long enough. We haven't got. You were one zoning issue, weren't you? When you first started? Yeah. Okay. That's the last one we've had. But I've had people wanting to do that, and I just basically tell them that you have the right to do this. You have the right to do your advertising, make your application, but all the R3 property is being used up in Jasper, Georgia. So planned unit development, thing of that nature we look at, but it all boils down to the fact that we don't have abundance of this. Otherwise, we'd probably be facing lawsuit after lawsuit because we don't have the infrastructure for it.
Okay, let me ask a real quick question and spin off of that. Okay, we've got Mayor, we've got Dr. Proctor, we've got Tina with Nelson. Are there any other employees for other
councilmen here?
Councilmen from other cities in the county that deal with zoning? Anybody? The question I want to ask is, are we seeing many requests for rezonings? Is that something that we're seeing a lot of? Richard, do y'all get?
Yeah, Mr.
very many
Cagle is the
requests?
planning commission chairman for the county.
Well, yeah, I'm not employed, yeah, I'm, I'm
Right,
appointed.
but you do,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the planning commission for 8 years now, I believe, or 8 or 9 years.
Good.
And, somebody made a point about coming out, and I think it was Randy. We've had a lot of rezone requests over the years. A lot of times, that's about the survey, 700 people, I know it's a nice representative survey, and it's a good percentage of the population, but it's easy to vote on a survey, and I'm trying to look at this objective, when it's just a survey, but when it may affect you or your property next to you, your back door, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't want that in mine. So we've had a lot of rezone requests over the years for multi-purpose facilities, special function facilities, and what have you. And the people have come out, and in droves, they filled up the commissioner's room upstairs, and all but one, they opposed it. And guess what? The planning commission, we turned it down. We did not give that recommendation to go before the board of commissioners. Now, the board of commissioners has the right of first refusal or passing it. They usually go by our recommendation. So, I think it's easy a survey is good, and it's valuable information that needs to be done, but when you just read something on paper and, well, yeah, I'd like to have that. Yeah, I mean, we'd all like to have, the winning lottery tickets for tonight's $700 million lottery. But you may not want to go out and spend $20 on Goodyear. So it's easy to read a survey and say, yeah, I'd like to have it. But then when it comes to times where it may affect you, it's like, I don't like that.
And you have to pay for it.
Well, it may not even pay for it, but I don't want to deal with the crowds and loud parties and receptions and all that, and you're at 11 o'clock at night. So, it's like I say, it's easy to say it when you're just looking at a survey, but when you have a chance to think about it, it's like, I don't know about that. Give you something to think about.
Something to just consider in terms of linking land use and housing. In this community and in any community, you've got to have some relief valve. And in the case of Pickens County, at least at this point, the county is still low regulation enough that somebody who is not as well, endowed financially can still get a used or new manufactured home, or can build a very small house because there's no minimum square footage size in the county. So there are people who are still, every day, every week, we get manufactured housing, 500 square foot, 1,000 square foot houses. And if we didn't have that in this community, I don't know where the relief valve would be. So if that changes, it would be a significant challenge for the community as a whole.
Yes, but you do know how that came about. The county did have those regulations about 10 years ago, that you couldn't bring a mobile home in that was older than, I think, maybe it had to be new. I know it couldn't be more than 10 years old. It had to be a double wide, it had to be on an acre and a half of land instead of an acre of land.
That was because
And
of
the
water.
state came in and changed the regulations.
That's because of water and sewer.
No, they changed the regulation because the state, the mobile home manufacturers went to the state and said we're being discriminated against. And so these counties had to change their regulations. So that's how it got more fair, just to be honest about it.
What is the regulation now?
Mobile home now, I think, can be on 1 acre, and it can be any age. They still check it, they still look at it. And they go out and actually look at it. I think it can be a single wide. But there was a lot more restrictions about 10 years ago, and these counties had to change their restrictions. And you probably don't know that, but so the counties do try to put restrictions on mobile homes because I remember complaining about it 10 years ago.
So what is the minimum now in the county, do you know?
Of what?
For a mobile home?
I think now, I've looked through the regulations, it looks like for a mobile home, the zoning has to be a minimum of 1 acre. It seems like there's no discrimination between a stick devil house on a mobile home. I can't find anything in regulations, and actually when I read through about it.
One just put his
water and sewer.
Now, I don't know about Jasper. You know, I'm talking about the county, I don't know
Well, I'm
about
talking about the too. If it's water and sewer, and the second thing, you have to have a minimum of 1.5 acres. I don't care if you're building a.
No, it's an acre. Right,
Richard, correct me if
Richard,
I'm wrong,
it's an
if you want to build a house, any type of home, residence on well and septic tank, you have to have
No,
a
I'm not
minimum of 1.5
talking-
acres.
If it's a well, but if it's on public water, if it's on public water, then it's
That's
one
what
acre.
I was saying a minute ago, it was on a septic tank and well, it's 1.5 acres.
Right.
Now, if it's county water or whatever it may be, but if it's well and
Right.
septic, it's 1.5 acres.
Right,
And that's the health department,
yeah, I
regulation
understand,
of the state.
I understand.
Very good. Well, yes, and there are state regulations that make a differentiation between a mobile home and a manufactured home. And there's a year, I think it's 1974, I want to say. And so a mobile home is built like before 1974.
Well, I
manufactured
use
home-
those names, you know,
Right, right.
in sense for
So-
manufactured.
Right, so some of that is state regulated though, and so sometimes when they fall beyond, before that 1974, there were different regulations, and that they deemed some of those actually as, they couldn't pass modern day building codes. So let's, just to throw things out there, what strengths do y'all have all together, Pickens County and the cities, intergovernmental coordination?
Explain that a little more detail.
Intergovernmental coordination.
Can I pick up a telephone and call the commissioner?
That could be.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I called the school superintendent the other day, and I actually had someone call me from his office, or from the cell phone where he's at. And we actually, for the first time, not going to be past superintendents, whatever, but we actually have a superintendent today that won't only call you and talk to you on the phone, but he'll actually meet you at that particular time. So I think that's great coordination.
That's a very
We have a commissioner and we have a sheriff in Pickens County that meet with me on a regular basis by simply picking up the telephone. Is that not good kind of communication?
That is certainly a part of this. It's a big part of it, and the communication you just mentioned between the superintendent and your chief elected officials, the community leaders. We see in a lot of communities that communication is not so good in a lot of communities. So if that basis for communication is there,
Well, I talked to Robert one time.
That's a strength. That's a strength. That's a strength. That people are at least willing to communicate, because it's not the same for all communities. So baseline communication, as far as picking up the phone, people talking to one another. Intergovernmental coordination as far as service agreements and things like that. Somebody's got. We talked about providing services earlier.
There is a mutual aid agreement for fire services between Pickens and Dawson County that has, it's
Apex at Dawson County Station 8, but it was jointly funded by both counties.
Okay. So that's good. That's good intergovernmental coordination outside the county. Also, that's important too. Is how well do the governments deal or communicate with your surrounding jurisdictions that butt up to you. So you know, cooperation and coordination in those areas is important too. In you know, like we talked about a minute ago, Cherokee County with, you know, spillover and things like that there. So having communication with those other governments that surround Pickens County is very, very important. Especially, I know Nelson, you guys specifically are sort of split. You know, you're between the two. So how is your communication? I think, from what I understand it, with Cherokee County and Pickens County, is you're pretty responsive on both?
More so with Cherokee County, but with Pickens as well. I mean, it's not that we've had any problems with that. It's just that depending on the elected officials that are in office, there have been time periods where there's that whole Cherokee versus Pickens, and so they want to deal with Pickens, or they only want to deal with Cherokee. And I think we're at the point now where we're working with, but making a point to work with both counties and not have that division that was there.
Very good. Everybody, as far as intergovernmental coordination, any more strengths?
Well, you could throw in our 911 system that the county has in place. They serve all the cities as if we were part of the incorporated. And we also have mutual aid agreements with all the fire departments inside the county with the cities, vice versa. So I think that would be very much a strength that we have that available.
Very good. Well, that's and to make the points, you know, these are all very good things. And I've been in a number of communities that, you know, that they have to be forced to sit down and talk to one another, and it's very, you know, there's a lot of issues there. So the fact that there is communication.
That from House Bill 489. Are you familiar with that House bill?
Not specifically.
This is the one where they said we must create strategies.
Yes, there's service delivery
it
strategies.
basically took a bone and threw it in the middle of the cities and counties around the state and said fight over it. And that's exactly what happened statewide. So we're still living through House Bill 489. I'm serious. You need to do a research on it.
No, I follow you. I understand. Any threats, weaknesses, intergovernmental coordination? Nothing? Well, that's good. That's good news. No threats, no weaknesses. Okay. Well, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. I think we sort of beat through that agenda there. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. Thank you all for staying over.